All right, I'm back again with more of the borrowers on the rainy, thundery day, and we are on chapter 8. Where we left off was that Ariete was upstairs for the first time, and Pod had just told her to go out on the step and look outside. So now we're going to pick up right there. And Pod is borrowing while we're doing this. Chapter 8. The step was warm, but very steep. If I go down on the path, Ariete thought, I might not get up again. So for some moments she sat quietly. After a while she noticed the shoe scraper. Ariete, called Pod softly, where have you got to? I just climbed down the shoe scraper, she called back. He came along and looked down at her from the top step. That's all right, he said after a moment's stare, but never climb down anything that isn't fixed like. Supposing one of them came along and moved the shoe scraper, where would you be then? How would you get up again? It's heavy to move, said Ariete. Maybe, said Pod, but it's movable. See what I mean? There's rules, my lass, and you've got to learn. This path, said Ariete, goes round the house, and the bank does too. Well, said Pod, what of it? Ariete rubbed one red kid shoe on the rounded stone. It's my grating, she explained. I was thinking that my grating must be just round the corner. My grating looks out on this bank. Your grating? Exclaimed Pod. Since when has it been your grating? I was thinking, Ariete went on, suppose if I went around the corner and called through the grating to Mother. No, said Pod. We are not going to have none of that, not going around corners. Then, went on Ariete, she'd see that I was all right like. Well, said Pod, and then he half smiled. Go quickly then and call. I'll watch for you here, not loud, mind. This is a picture. I think that's what a shoe scraper looks like, because that's the only thing they've really talked about, but there she is climbing down it. The only shoe scraper I've ever seen in real life is at Grandma and Papa's, and that was like a thing that kind of looked like a cooling rack, but it has a bunch of pokey things on top, and you scrape your boots on it. But now that I think about it, I don't know if that's even really what it was for, but that's what we used it for when we were little. Okay, sorry. Side note. Pod just gave her permission to go. Okay. Ariete ran. The stones in the path were firmly bedded, and her light, soft shoes hardly seemed to touch them. How glorious it was to run. You could never run under the floor. You walked, you stooped, you crawled, but you never ran. Ariete nearly ran past the grating. She saw it just in time after she turned the corner. Yes, there it was, quite close to the ground, embedded deeply in the old wall of the house. There was moss below it in a spreading greenish stain. Ariete ran up to it. Mother, she called, her nose against the iron grill. Mother! She waited quietly, and after a moment she called again. At the third call, Homily came. Her hair was coming down, and she carried, as though it were heavy, the screw lid of a pickle jar filled with soapy water. Oh, she said in an annoyed voice, you didn't half give me a turn. What do you think you're up to? Where's your father? Ariete jerked her head sideways. Just up there by the front door. She was so full of happiness that out of Homilly's sight, her toes danced on the green moss. Here she was on the other side of the grating. Here she was at last on the outside looking in. Yes, said Homily, they open the door like that the first day of spring. Well, she went on briskly, you run back to your father and tell him, if the morning room door happens to be open, that I wouldn't say no to a bit of red blotting paper. Mind, on my way now, while I throw the water. That's what grows the moss, thought Ariete as she sped back to her father. All the water we empty through the grating. Pod looked relieved when he saw her, but frowned at the message. How'd she expect me to climb the desk without me pin? Blotting paper's a curtain and chair job, and she should know it. Come on up. Come on now, up with you. Let me stay down, pleaded Ariete, just a little bit longer, just till you finish. They're all out except her. Mother said so. She'd say anything, grumbled Pod, when she wants something quick. How does she know that she won't take it into her head to get out of that bed of hers and come downstairs with a stick?
How does she know that Mrs. Driver ain't stayed home today with a headache? How does she know that the boy ain't still here?
What boy?
Asked Arrietty. Pod looked embarrassed. What boy? He repeated vaguely, and then went on. Or maybe Crampfurl. Crampfurl isn't a boy, said Arrietty. No, he isn't, said Pod. Not in a manner of speaking, no. He went on as though thinking this out. No, you wouldn't call Crampfurl a boy. Not as you might say a boy exactly. Well, he said, beginning to move away. Stay down a bit if you like, but stay close. Arrietty watched him move away from the step, and then she looked about her. Oh, glory, oh, joy, oh, freedom! The sunlight, the grasses, the soft moving air, and halfway up the bank, where it curved around the corner, a flowering cherry tree. Below it on the path lay a stain of pinkish petals, and at the tree's foot, pale as butter, a nest of primroses. Arrietty threw a cautious glance toward the front door, and then, light and dancy in her soft red shoes, she ran toward the petals. They were curved like shells and rocked as she touched them. She gathered several up and laid them inside the other, up and up like a card castle. And then she spilled them. Pod came again to the top of the step and looked down the path. Don't you go far, he said after a moment. Seeing his lips move, she smiled back at him. She was too far already to hear the words. A greenish beetle, shining in the sunlight, came toward her across the stones. She laid her fingers lightly on its shell, and it stood still, waiting and watchful. When she moved her hand, the beetle went swiftly on. An ant came hurrying in a busy zigzag. She danced in front of it to tease it and put out her foot. It stared at her, nonplussed, waving its antenna. Then, pettishly, as though put out, it swerved away. Two birds came, quarreling shrilly, into the grass below the tree. One flew away, but Arrietty could see the other among the moving grass stems above her on the slope. Cautiously, she moved toward the bank and climbed a little nervously in amongst the grass blades. As she parted them gently with her bare hands, drops of water plopped on her skirt, and she felt the red shoes begin to become damp. But on she went, pulling herself up and now and again by rooty stems into the jungle moss and wood violet and creeping leaves of clover. The sharp singing grass blades, waist high, were tender to the touch and sprang back lightly behind her as she passed. When at last she reached the foot of the tree, the bird took fright and flew away, and she sat down suddenly on a gnarled leaf of primrose. The air was filled with scent, but nothing will play with you, she thought, and she saw the cracks and furrows of the primrose leaves that held crystal beads of dew. If she pressed the leaf, these rolled like marbles. The bank was warm, almost too warm here within the shelter of the tall grass, and the sandy earth smelled dry. Standing up, she picked a primrose. The pink stalk felt tender and living in her hands, and it was covered with silvery hairs. And when she held the flower like a parasol between her eyes and the sky, she saw the sun's pale light through the veined petals. On a piece of bark she found a woodlouse, and she struck it lightly with her swaying flower. It curled immediately and became a ball, bumping softly down the wood hill among the grass roots. But she knew about wood lice. There were plenty of them at home under the floor. Homily always scolded her if she played with them because she said they smelled of old knives. She lay back among the stalks of primroses, and they made a coolness between her and the sun. Then, sighing, she turned her head and looked sideways up the bank among the grass stems. Startled, she caught her breath. Something had moved above her on the bank. Something had glittered. Arrietty stared. And that's the end of chapter 8. That was a really good one. And I hope you're liking the book so far. I'll see you later for chapter 9. Love you.